Chapter 7. Good morning, sleepyhead, Ashton said softly as I began to open my eyes. She lay beside me with her leg over my hips, her head lay on my chest. Her lips would press my collarbone every time she looked up. I stared at the ceiling while I began to recall certain parts of the night. It is Sunday. It needs to be a calm day. Today is a day we need to take care of ourselves and our thoughts. We made breakfast and coffee before sitting at the dining room table. The news played as we talked about what we found on the road last night. We had some good ideas as to how it got there, but I don't think it was going to sit with us correctly until Blanca explained to us. I cannot stop thinking about Jacob, Ashton said as she took a bite of her waffle. Me too, darlin', I replied as I took a sip of coffee. Do you think that was his touch last night in Blanca's cabin? You said you felt someone touch your hand. Ashton stated. I am not sure, but I would say yes before I say no. I cannot stop thinking about him too. How are you though, sweetheart? How is Miss Ashton? I am doing good, my love. Even though it was as negative as it was inside those buildings, last night was really fun. But there is something else I cannot stop thinking about. We don't have to talk about it now, but I am a little worried about the end of the night, she said, standing up to take her plate to the sink. What do you mean? I asked as she looked over. It said your name, Forrest. We cannot act like we did not hear that, she said in a concerned tone. I know, love, and we will. We will set aside some time after we wake up. We can get it all out, I said before taking another sip of coffee. Look at me, Forrest, she said softly. I love you no matter what, she said, locking eyes. I love you no matter what, I repeated. She then got up and walked over to the fridge to take out some champagne and orange juice. She put down the bottles on the counter, then walked over to the record player and put the needle down on a slow ambient horn and piano album with a low-tempo kick and snare. She then grabbed 2 glasses before pouring them. I watched the news as they covered a murder that happened in Northridge last night, about 2 blocks from our school. Whose cat is that? Ashton said with a giggle while looking into the backyard. Grim got up and ran towards the glass sliding door, periodically letting out small woofs followed by a low growl. The cat was gray with long hair and big paws. The eyes were bright blue. It was snowing lightly with heavy fog. The cat walked through the fresh snow and over to the opposing side of the glass. He sat down and looked up at Grim, then over at me. After a few seconds, it looked over at Ashton. He's not scared of Grim. That cat has got some big balls, I said, laughing as the cat went back to glaring at Grim's face. We sat in our chairs and enjoyed our coffee while we woke up. Once the cat left, we went upstairs and laid in our bed to watch TV for a while. The news played once again at a low volume while we lay in each other's company. We eventually talked about Building 8 as well as the elk and a few other things that bothered us. It felt really good to get it off my chest. Ashton got up at some point to start painting. A little while later I began writing. I opened the letter I got in the mail. Someone wanted me to have a photo of Mr. and Mrs. B. I took the envelope it came from and read the top left corner. 15,624, Mapleview Drive. I then talked to Ashton about visiting the home in a few days when we feel better. The sky grew a little darker. There was lightning that lit up the sky and clouds off in the distance. We wanted to go see the lighting from the backyard, so we put on our coats and went downstairs. The cat was gone. The thunder rolled through the mountains, scaring Grim a little. We slid open the door and stood under the awning waiting for the next bolt of lightning to strike. We stayed until we were too cold to bear it. My lips were chapped from the dry wind. When we went inside, I took off my shoes and jacket. We went back upstairs and put on a different record on our bedroom player. This time, the slowest De La Soul record I could find softly sounded in the background while we passed out naked in our bed. We woke to a phone call from Jake about an hour before the sun went down. Hey fucker, so Kendall, Ed, and I are going to go into Merlot tonight if you wanna come, Jake said loudly while eating an apple. He does this all the time. He knows I hate the sound of chewing. What's the occasion, Dingleberry, and quit chewing with your fucking mouth open. It is fucking disgusting. I responded. Ashton began laughing. We are going to see a comedian tonight, my guy. His name is Victor Euronymous. He's the one that is super blunt with that dark humor we like. You said you fuck with him when I showed you his tape. That sounds sick actually. Hold on, I responded as I turned to Ashton, who was already nodding her head with a smile. Yeah man, we are in. What's the dress code? I asked. Fancy, Dress as dapper as you can or they will not let you in. Jake replied, "Okay, we can do that. What time do you want us over?" I asked as I stood up from the bed. "Well, me and Kendall are going to bump uglies then make food. So after that," he responded. "Sounds good, he'll be there in 5 minutes," I said before hanging up the phone. I grabbed the photo of the Bringston family from my desk and put it with the other photo in the book between the pages. I remembered we still had to go to Blanca's house tonight, so I put the book in my backpack. I quickly ironed a button-up shirt and pair of pants. I wore my grandfather's charcoal gray sports jacket and leather dinner shoes. I brushed my teeth and combed my hair over with pomade. Ashton wore a tight black dress with black heels. Her hair was flawless, her lips are red. She carried a bag with a dead Kennedy's patch sewn onto the side. She looked gorgeous. We grabbed our coats then walked around the house, locking all the doors and windows before feeding Grim. We cleaned the house a little bit before we left just to kill a little more time. I didn't want to cock-block poor Jake. We turned off the lights and climbed into the truck. Ashton had a flask she was taking swigs out of. I had a cigarette and a bottle of whiskey I was sipping on. "Take a left onto Hilltop and drive to the lot by the post office," she said with a playful look in her eye. I drove slowly down the street while the Jerry Show played in the back. I took a drag of my cigarette and looked over to see Ashton removing her thong. With a smile, she placed them on my thigh. Her hand then took the cigarette from my mouth, then taking a long drag before putting it back in my mouth. She sat back in her chair with her legs spread, her heels on the dashboard, slowly playing with herself while reaching over and pulling on my belt. Once we got to the lot, I put my cigarette out and pulled my pants to my ankles. She put me inside of her and slowly rode me while kissing me. Her moaning turned into phrases as the windows started to fog up. I grabbed her hip and placed my fingers around her ribs, her body tensing up when she finished. When it was over, she got off and sat in the seat beside me. I grabbed the towel from under the seat to clean up. We turned the defroster on and watched the snow pelt the windshield. Once we made it to Jake's house, we parked and sat in the truck while finishing up the last of our conversation. "The living room light turned on, so I'm sure he's done," Ashton said, putting out her grit. We walked up the driveway and under the awning. The door was unlocked, so we walked in. "Ed's on the way," I shouted as poured my shot glass. "What's up, butt pirate?" Jake said as he hugged me. He was a little short of breath. We poured some drinks and sat around the TV waiting for Kendall to get ready and for Ed to show up. Music and laughter sounded from upstairs. Taylor's having a few friends stay over before Camp Verdict. Jake before we took our shots of whiskey. "I remember those days," I responded, pouring our next round. Ashton walked over to me and stood in front of me with her back against my stomach. She then took my arm over her shoulder and had me hold her while she grabbed her shot glass. "Were they fun? The camp days?" Ashton asked. "Some of the best nights we had as kids," I responded. "Once we were counselors, it was all over for Verdict. We had the most fun and went on the most adventures. We were the favorites by a long shot." "Fuck yes we were," Jake interrupted. "We just did what we wanted. We would scare the shit out of campers around that fire pit, and play pranks on them when we got back to our cabins. The counselors would sneak out after the campers went to bed and get drunk, then pretend like we weren't hungover the next day." "I wish I was around," Ashton said with a smile, looking up at me. "Me too, baby, you would have made an amazing counselor," I replied. "Yeah, Ashton, you would have been a favorite," Jake stated, taking a swig from the bottle. Ashton took a shot. A pleasant smile resonated as we continued to talk. Kendall made her way down the stairs and joined us. Shortly after, Ed walked through the front door. We were all dressed to the nines, the room smelling of rich cologne and perfume. Jake, Ed, and I took more shots as Kendall and Ashton polished off a bottle of red wine. We did a couple of lines of blow before smoking a cigarette outside. After we walked back in, I realized we got a little too fucked up and a little too fast, but we were having a damn good time. "Should we call a cab? I don't want you driving," Kendall asked as she walked over to the house phone. "Yes," Jake said as his head wobbled back and forth, as drunk people do. "Could we all pile in one? Should I give him extra money so we don't have to get a second one?" Ed asked. "We figured we would take the chance and just wait and see what he says when he gets here." We drank a little more and loaded up on water before our cab got to the house. Our driver's name is Franklin Pickles. He is a tall, lanky man with a properly curled mustache. His hair was clean and tapered up the sides. He wore a short black top hat that looked almost new. He dressed like a gentleman and has a coarse low voice. He has an ad fixture illuminated on the top of the taxi. One side was a bail bondsman with a slogan that read, "You're in jail, what now?" The other side had a picture of a girl making a kissing face while winking. The text read, "For a great time call 1-800-288-8739. Hello sir, my name is Forrest, this is my girlfriend Ashton. Next to her is Kendall, and the gentleman next to me, his name is Ed. And the character next to you is Jake. Hello my friends, my name is Franklin. Where are we going on this beautiful night?" he said looking into the rearview mirror. Jake was in the front while the rest of us crammed in the back. "The Merlot Theater Hall please," Jake said buckling his seatbelt. "Ah," he said with a great smile. "You are looking to laugh tonight my friend?" Franklin said looking over at Jake. "Yes we are, have you heard of Victor Euronymous?" Jake asked. "Yes, Sir Euronymous, I have driven him to many places in the city of Merlot. We have become great friends over the years. We have spent many nights driving around the towns," Franklin said taking a ride on to Jericho. "We are lucky that the plow had just cleared the road and we did not need chains. All this weight is dangerous in a car like this on an icy road." We made our way down the mountain and onto C Street, in downtown Merlot. The buildings here are nice and made of either expensive brick or stone. The street lamps are fancy and the sidewalks are made of tightly fitted cobblestone, flat enough for Kendall and Ashton's heels. We took a right onto the main drag. Neon signs from the clubs, cinemas, hotels, bars, and restaurants reflected off the snow and lit up the streets. The roads are wet, the alleyways are dark. The sidewalks were filled with people dressed in their winter attire, smoking their cigarettes as they walked down the street. After a few blocks, we arrived at the Merlot Theater Hall. Jake and Franklin finished their conversation before he gave him $50. "Very generous my friend, I thank you," Franklin said before rolling up the window. "I will see you soon," he said before driving off. The marquee read, "Comedy. Victor Euronymous, tonight. At 7 p.m. We were a little late but we were told it hadn't started yet. The five of us found our seats about 9 rows from the front. The seats were red velvet with a bronze armrest. The room was filled with laughter and chatter as the piano played a tune for the audience. The room smelt strange to Ashton and I. I am not sure if the others have picked up on it yet. A few minutes went by before the lights went out and the spotlight shined on the microphone stand in the center of the stage. A man came out to introduce Victor. The room erupted with the sound of clapping as he took the stage. Jake noticed the carpet under all of us was wet, and said he could feel it since the entrance. Ed brought up that it smelt like someone spilled chemicals before they opened the doors. We took off our fancy coats and sat back in our seats. Victor's set was hilarious. It felt incredibly good to see us all laughing and having a good time, but 20 minutes and he started to get too dark. I am the last to tell you that a comedian went too far, but we were almost to a point where it was uncomfortable. His bits went from blunt and twisted comedy to horrible spin-off stories pertaining to the disappearances that have been occurring in town lately.
I remember I almost threw up when I saw Miriam's photo on the side of my milk. I kid you not. She did not bring her cart back to the holder after grocery shopping last week. She very well could have but left it for someone else to do it. What a shame. On Wednesday I turned that hag's body inside out, fucking literally. The best part is that there is no way they will find her. She is at the bottom of the river. I'll have you know that last week I started to get bored and I got very sick of looking at Miriam's face on that cart. So, I had to step up my game. I had to challenge myself. After some long nights, ladies and gentlemen, they finally started to put the pretty girls on the carton. That way I have something to jerk my dick to while I drink 2%.
Not many people laughed. A good amount did. The five of us stayed quiet, I get where he thinks that bit would have been good, but it did not sit well with us. It might have been funny if Miriam was not actually missing, and 4 college students didn't disappear this week. The news covered it yesterday morning. And all last night? I looked over at Jake to see him rubbing Kendall's back while she leaned forward in her chair. She did not look too good. Her face pale, she was gagging while trying not to make a sound. We all agreed we should go. I wasn't feeling too good either, and Ed was feeling dizzy and lightheaded. We got up from our seats and walked down the Elsa towards the exit, our shoes stepping across a damp carpet. On the way out I saw Kendall had stopped near the entrance. She was standing still, her eyes fixed on the pull handle to the fire alarm. As we approached her, Ashton grabbed her hand to guide her out. We all turned around once more before exiting to see a woman standing by her seat, facing us. She watched us as we backed up into the gathering hall where the ticket counter sat. We walked through the large open room towards the entrance doors. Once outside, Ed ran to the bush next to the entrance and threw up. I'm sorry, I got the worst feeling in my stomach. It didn't feel right in there, plus I was smelling chemicals towards the end. I just had to leave. Kendall said with her hand over her stomach trying to catch her breath. Don't be sorry, I completely get it, I feel the same way, Ed said walking back from the bushes. He then took his pack of cigarettes out from his jacket. Let's call a cab, I want to get home, Jake said with an annoyed look on his face. I was feeling a little annoyed as well. We wanted a night out with a good show and instead wound up uncomfortable and sick. We walked to a payphone and called the taxi service. They will be 10 minutes, Ashton said, lighting a cigarette. We did the best we could to get our minds off the show. The night felt stale. The wind wasn't blowing anymore, just really light snow gently falling to the street. No one walking around anymore. The sound of a cello could be heard playing a few blocks away. Every now and then, periodic laughter could be heard coming from the theater. Hello, my friend sounded coarsely from the street next to us. Our driver's name is Franklin Pickles. He is a tall lanky man with a properly curled mustache. His hair was clean and tapered up the sides. He wore a short black top hat that looked almost new. He dressed like a gentleman and has a coarse low voice. He has an ad fixture illuminated on the top of the taxi. One side was a bail bondsman with a slogan that read, "You're in jail, what now?" The other side had a picture of a girl making a kissing face while winking. The text read, "For a great time call 1-800-288-8739. Hello sir, my name is Forrest, this is my girlfriend Ashton. Next to her is Kendall, and the gentleman next to me, his name is Ed. And the character next to you is Jake. Hello my friends, my name is Franklin. Where are we going on this beautiful night?" he said looking into the rearview mirror. Jake was in the front while the rest of us crammed in the back. 71,539 Aspen Drive, Jake said buckling his seatbelt. We are lucky that the plow had just cleared the road and we didn't need chains, all this weight is dangerous in a car like this. We made our way up the mountain and through the dense fog. Steam lined the windows from the inside. The defroster wasn't strong enough for this many people. We had Franklin drop us off in my driveway. Everyone stayed and drank for a little bit before going back home. Ashton and I changed out of our fancy clothes and got dressed to go to Blanca's house.